Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles Sabansi. I want to welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And today we got a pretty interesting episode for you guys. But before we get into it, please make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. And if you want today's full episode, be sure to follow the Dreamerspro podcast, which is going to be pinned in the first comment below. So anyway, let me get into this topic here. As you guys know, there isn't much to discuss right now in the sports calendar because, well, there's not a lot going on. Now, for some people, they want to talk about Damian Lillard. I have absolutely zero interest to talk about that. I'm not interested in talking about any free agency moves because these things are not they're just not interesting, right? They're not interesting. So you can see this in the, in the sports cycle. So yesterday, I came across a segment of Stephen A. Smith's show. This was around 3 a.m. in the morning, my time. And it was about this 20-minute show. And I was like, okay, Stephen A. Smith seems to be pretty fired up because it had something to do with him kind of addressing some of the critics of ESPN. So I clicked on the show. And as a matter of fact, there were so many different items to cover that we're going to be covering different things throughout the day. We have a lot of shows dropping. But again, if you want the full show, go to the Dreamerspro podcast. That's going to be linked. It's going to be in the pinned comments, first comment pinned in the comment section. But anyway, he was talking about a litany of things. Now, Stephen A. Smith in this particular show seemed to be on vacation, which seems counterintuitive because if you're on vacation, I don't know why you'd be working. If I'm on vacation, y'all ain't gonna see me. y'all are not, unless it's some breaking news. But I'm not gonna be on vacation like I had something on my chest I need to discuss with you guys. No. If I'm on vacay, I'm on vacay. So anyway, he comes off vacation, and apparently what had happened was I think Stephen A. Smith had been hearing the chatter that's been out there about some of the things that people have been saying about ESPN and especially around the firings and all of that. So in this particular segment that we want to focus on today, Stephen A. Smith was essentially keying in on some comments that Dan Le Batard, who used to have the Dan Le Batard show with his father and others at ESPN, he was keying in on some comments that Dan Le Batard had been making about his time working at ESPN and basically saying he's happy that he got out when he did. Well, apparently these comments rubbed Stephen A. Smith in the wrong way, and he took it upon himself to publicly address Dan Le Batard for the things that he had to say about ESPN. So what we want to do is we want to play exactly what Stephen A. Smith had to say. It was pretty fiery. So we want you guys to listen to it in its entirety. And then we're going to come back and continue on with the show. Take a listen to what Stephen A. Smith had to say here.
See, I got this little agitation that swells up inside of me when I see people talking about the network, particularly people who used to work there. Because if you notice something about me, I will come to my own defense all day, every day. You come at me, I'll come right back at you at my discretion. But what I won't do is constantly lament an employer that was once good enough for me to take money from. That's BS. It really, really is. I'm listening to Dan Le Batard, and I guess that it was some show from the other day because obviously it was in the aftermath of the layoffs and a sad day, the worst day in the history of ESPN and all of this stuff because of the layoffs. Of course it was a bad day. Of course that's not something you celebrate. Of course you take no joy in folks losing their jobs. I know that, and as I will remind this audience, as sad as I am, and as wishful as I am that every single one of those folks land on their feet and ultimately recapture a prosperous career that they had at ESPN, that they do it somewhere else, I will remind everybody they're casualties of a layoff. Because ESPN lost $5.5 billion. The parks and the theaters, not the situation in Florida with Governor DeSantis and the don't say gay policy. Or what was labeled that. That ain't the reason. Contrary to what y'all want to believe. See, y'all talking emotion. I have facts. That is not true. Parks, movie theaters, and sporting events disappearing. It's a lot of money to make up for. That's what happened. But y'all talk about, oh my Lord, I'm looking, Elamin Hassan rather, I'm sorry to mess up your name, Elamin. You know that. Got love and respect for you. He on the Dan Le Batard show. And he's talking too. And I'm looking at Dan Le Batard and I'm still disgusted. Still disgusted, even though Dan Le Batard is my friend. And I love him. But I'm still disgusted about how he came at me with that question on his damn show. I hate what you and Skip Bayless have done to sports. Like his ass has been doing accounting. Did you have highly questionable? Was our daddy on the show with us? That was you. You. By the way, I love Mr. Le Batard. Papa de Le Batard. No shade on him either. Please don't take this that way. That's not what I mean by that. I'm talking about your comfort. You was on the show just looking at your father saying hi and giving him a hug and a kiss. You were debating. That's what you were doing. It amazes me how somebody like a Dan Le Batard will sit up there and lament the state of affairs in an industry you are participating in. You sitting on the air, I don't know how long ago it was, with Jamel Hill talking about how, you know what, it's a great thing you left. Really? Okay. Probably is. Because I know you're gifted at what you do, and you're a great person. You know I love you, but I'm getting on Dan Le Batard about this a little bit. Why is ESPN always a topic of discussion like this? And why are folks coming off like we're losing? Subscribers have diminished. We're in 72 million homes now, not the 90 plus million or even 100 million that we were years ago. Do you have any idea how dominant ESPN in the sports landscape? We're number one. No one's close. No one's close. Subscribers have dipped because we have a younger generation with the advent of social media and the digital stratosphere, and they found different options other than linear television to watch a product. It's very simple. Dan Le Batard is one of the most brilliant people you will ever meet. He knows this. What you for?
So you heard what he had to say. First of all, let me commend Stephen A. Smith for this one thing. I like the fact that he put a name on it. I like the fact that he put a name on it. What I've noticed in the sports media arena, and I've said this before and I'm going to reiterate the point again, is that for whatever reason, people that cover sports or talk about sports for whatever reason, they seem not to mention each other. It's like an unspoken rule, like, okay, we're not just going to say each other's names. To me, I like that he called these, I like that he directed the comments at the person he was talking about. Now, obviously, I think the reason that Stephen A. Smith called him out was because he believes that there's somebody, that this is a person on the same wavelength. I don't think if he was talking about somebody that had a very, very, very small audience, he would address them by name to give them that attention. But Dan Le Batard used to work at ESPN. He is well known, etc., etc., etc. So let's get to his comments. Essentially, Stephen A. Smith seemed to be annoyed at the fact that he was bad mouthing a company that he used to work at. And he said, if ESPN was so bad, why did you stay all of these years? Now, that is a very good question. And I think that's a fair question. If it was so bad, why were you there all these years? It's a very, very good question, to be totally honest with you. If it was so bad, you had no issues taking their money. Now, this isn't the first time that Dan Le Batard, who is, I think, sponsored by sports books. It's not DraftKings. Is I can't remember the company or whatever. But anyway, this is not the first time that they've had kind of a back and forth, because a few months ago, Stephen A. Smith actually went on the Dan Le Batard show where Dan Le Batard directly to his face said, I don't like what you and Skip Bayless have done to sports media. That's essentially what he was referring to. So when he said, when you had you guys up there debating and all of that stuff, what do you think you guys were doing? And I think that Stephen A. Smith essentially is trying to call out the hypocrisy. I think that he was sitting back and listening to what a lot of these people are saying, and he felt the need to, to respond to him. And he called him out by name. Now, he did try to cushion it with a bit of love, like, he's my friend, I like him, blah, 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 whatever. But he still called him out. Right. And I think that Stephen A. Smith is now on the offensive. I think he notices a lot of the things that are being said about ESPN. And I think he wants to come to defense of essentially his employer. Right. So to me, it was pretty interesting. The most surprising part was that he actually called out a former colleague of his by name. which is something that you seldom see take place in the sports media landscape. So what I want to know from you guys is simply this. Do you think Stephen A. Smith made any good points? Number two, do you think Dan Le Batard should have a rebuttal to Stephen A. Smith's comments? Whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section. And again, if you want the full show of today's episode, be sure to follow us in the Dreamers Pro podcast, where we have our entire show for the day on there. Catch you guys on the next show.